Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It's your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. In 2001, Omega launched the Museum Watch series, a selection of watches, one launched each year, that represented a modernization and reissuance of one historic piece from the Omega Factory Museum. And the first watch in 2001 was the Pilot's Watch 1938. But if you look closely at this dial, you will note this is not that watch. Almost everything else, bezel, case, and movement is the same. But this Roman numeral dial with a modern Omega logo and marquee suggests something is amiss, and indeed it is. This was one of two models, one black dial, one silver dial, made exclusively for the Japanese market, which is why you will find hardly anything about this watch online. And while the standard watch was made in the unfathomable number of 4,938, yes, for a limited edition, this watch was not necessarily limited but constrained by geography and the short span of production. Now, throwing it on my wrist, you can see the stainless steel watch is surprisingly broad. It's not a big case, which is 40.5 millimeters in diameter, and as you can see in profile, a relatively slim 11.7 millimeters thick, but the lugs at 51.5 millimeters across the wrist are substantial, and you can see that they are probably the single most striking historical reference of the watch, as they have a physical presence external to the case that announces this watch. Now, it is flat and it'll sit underneath the cuff. It could be a dress watch, but because of the sheer breadth of the lugs, I would say wear this watch on a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference or larger. The spacing between the lugs, because you will want to accessorize this vintage piece with a strap, possibly a NATO strap even, 24 millimeters, so it's nice and broad on the wrist. Taking a quick look at the strap that's fitted, you will note it is an Omega Factory strap in brand new condition. Calfskin on the bottom, large rectangular scale alligator leather on the top, a monotone stitch. It has a folded edge, it is black, it is a matte finish, and it is bolstered, so there's a lot of leather here. You're getting a quality piece. Once it breaks in, it'll be tremendous, and due to the amount of leather invested, it'll probably last forever. The buckle is a simple polished steel Omega pin buckle. The case is distinctly vintage with a narrow case band and these remarkable, striking, straight jutting lugs. They do have a handsome curvature though. They're not awkward in any way. They just have a lot of presence and personality. As you can see, the crown is designed to have a vintage presence, being exceptionally flat in profile. There is a coined bezel, and this watch does have a rotating bezel. A little bit unconventional. You can see that it is calibrated in hours, so you can use it for different timing endeavors. It's easy enough to think of each of these as a 5-minute marker if you wish. You know, this could be 15, this could be 30, this could be 45. But the fact is, you can also use the bezel for timing long duration events comprised of hours, and indeed on an overseas flight you might do exactly that. That is part of the vintage paradigm that dominates this watch's design. You'll also note that there's a lovely silver satin lacquer-filled bezel that moves inboard of the external bezel, and it glides wonderfully, almost as though it were mounted on a Norglide bearing. Very impressive. Cathedral-style hands at center, and then you have that Japanese edition dial. The standard watch featured rather puffy vintage radium-style Arabic numerals. This one features a cleaner, flatter dial using radially arrayed Roman numerals, including a watchmaker's 4, and then a railroad track outboard of that for counting your minutes. There is a small second sub-register, and if you look closely, you can see it has a handsomely polished chapter ring, so attention to detail matters here. The Japanese market edition was, again, limited by circumstances, a small market and geographic proximity, so although it's not a limited edition watch, it is limited. Now, the case back, of course, is very similar to the standard Pilot's Watch 1938, a combination of media blasting and polish. And then what's inside the case is basically an ETA 28952, but here it's doing business as the Omega Caliber 2200. What do you need to know? Well, it's a bidirectional automatic winder. It has a stop seconds or hacking function. It beats away at 8 beats per second, pivots on 29 joules. It has a 44-hour power reserve. It's adjusted in 5 positions, and it is a Swiss COSC chronometer. This watch comes with a chronometer card and its entire boxed set. So, if you like the Omega Museum Watch 1, the 1938 1938 Pilot, but you think it's too common, or you want something that's just JDM cool. That's exactly what this is. 50 meters water resistant, so I wouldn't swim with it, but then again, you have a Seamaster, possibly a JDM Seamaster for that. Reach out to tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. And we're back with the Pilot's Watch 1938. You can see there is a luminescent index on the bezel that is mobile and visible at night relative to the hour and minute hands.